Hello and welcome back to Cinema Wellman. I am your host, David, and today's episode is our third in our ongoing and introducing series where we take a look at actors and actresses and GOATs who have earned that very special and introducing screen credit over the years. Our first and introducing episode was about Tilly Losh, and episode 1 of season 2 this year was about movies that gave that prestigious credit to several people at the same time. We have another of those today, but today's focus is on people who earned that celebrated credit, and that film ended up being the one and only credited film appearance of their entire career. We are going to call them the one and dones. We have 6 people, an inflatable pilot, and a GOAT to discuss. So let's get into those one and dones. Actually, a few things before I get into that. Now that I've cut the cord with the DVD side of Netflix, which I'm sure forced them to suspend the entire operation altogether, I only get my mail once every 10 days or so. So no movies in my mail. Why get the mail? It's useless to me. Next, a recent Cinema Wellman episode was about scoreless movies. And since doing that episode, I've been super focused on the scores of the movies that I'm watching, kind of like how I now pay special attention to lighting after working on The Woundwood. While watching The Big Lebowski as part of Cinema Wellman's 420 festivities, I noticed something amazing about the score. There really isn't one to speak of, and yet there's wall-to-wall music in that film. What the Coen brothers did was pretty much patch together an unbelievable string of popular music that helped to tell the story. Every time I think about music and The Big Lebowski, I'm reminded of a funny story about the production of the film. The Coen brothers wanted to use a particular song by a particular songwriter over the closing credits, and they were in negotiations with the artist about using his song, and they all sat together for a screening. When the scene with Lebowski disparaging the Eagles, I guess you could put it that way, played, the songwriter laughed and asked, are you going to keep that in the movie? That's going to be in the movie? And when the Coens answered yes, his reply was, oh, man, you can have my song for free. I guess he also hated the Eagles. And okay, one more thing before we get to the one and dones. Next time you watch an old movie from the 40s or the 50s, pay attention to how the drivers exit the car. It seems like everyone slid across that bench seat on the inside of the car and exited from the passenger side. Now, I came up with 3 possible reasons for this. And if anybody has any input, let me know. If you know the answer or think you know the answer or agree with one of the 3, please let me know. But here's what I came up with. Why do drivers in movies from the 40s and 50s, they always seem to slide across the front bench seat and exit out the passenger door? Okay, reason number 1. People were more safety conscious back then, and when parking in cities, you didn't want to get out of the car and step into traffic. No one seems to care about that anymore. Number 2, it's solely for the setup of the shot. The director and the cinematographer didn't want to block the shot to include the driver's side and what was next to it. The action's going to follow the people somewhere, and the driver just slides across that seat to join in. And number 3, it's just the way people used to get in and out of cars back then, and when bucket seats came along, they could no longer do it that way. So, I don't know. I just always laugh when I see that, and I notice it all the time. All right, now, and finally, to the one and dones. To recap, when I mention credited roles, I'm referring to just that. I do not count any appearances in any movies that were uncredited appearances. I also do not count appearances in made-for-television movies or television shows themselves. 4 of today's one and dones were previously mentioned in Season 2, Episode 1, when I discussed movies that introduce more than one person. Since some of those individuals also fit here, I'll discuss them again. Just like I'll talk about Kate Winslet again in a future and introducing episode about people given the and introducing credit who went on to be nominated for or win an Oscar. Definitely not any one and dones on that list. So here we go. First up, G.T. Taylor as Connie in Evils of the Night 1985. Evils of the Night was total junk that felt the need to introduce several young actors and actresses at the same time, many of whom went on to do absolutely nothing in film after that. G.T. Taylor was one of those people. I'm assuming Connie was a bigger part than Girl Applying Lotion, Girl Applying Lotion number 2, or First Girl Having Sex, all of which were actual credits in this movie. There's not much out there about Miss Taylor other than that her first name is Gwen. Not sure why she never made another movie, but if you watch Evils of the Night, you might get a pretty good idea. Next, David Hawke as Brian in Evils of the Night 1985. The same can be said of David Hawke. Watch his performance so you can understand why he didn't pursue the craft. Now, better than I could have done, by far, but he's not very good. Mr. Hawke also did one episode of the 70s soap opera Ryan's Hope, so he's one up on his co-star in that department. David was also a contestant on the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, which was an absolutely dreadful game show back in the day. He was a contestant and not a celebrity guest in a game that featured way too many celebrity guests, and that should tell you something. There is a David Hawke currently involved in professional wrestling, but I'm not sure if it's our David Hawke. Next, Lenny Huffington as Korn in Bad Lucky Goat 2017. 2017's sweet Colombian film Bad Lucky Goat was discussed in this season's first episode because, like Evils of the Night, it introduced several people at once. This delightful movie was Lenny's one and only acting credit. Aside from his appearance in this film, I couldn't find out anything more about him. I was even directed to his Instagram, and there was nothing close to acting related being posted there. I'm presuming he's retired from acting, and I hope he's doing well. He did a good job in Bad Lucky Goat. As did Vincent, the goat, in Bad Lucky Goat. As I mentioned in that earlier episode, I couldn't find out anything more about what happened to Vincent and where he went, and I looked again. I added in that episode that I hoped he didn't end up in the catering tent. Since your average goat lives 15 to 18 years, there's a chance that he's still with us. So here's wishing him fields of weeds and trash to feast on, because that's what goats eat. A good goat will do that. Next, we have Otto as himself in Airplane from 1980. When I started keeping track of this prestigious credit a few years ago, little did I know that I'd be adding an inflatable pilot to the list, but that's exactly who Otto is. I double-checked to see if he also appeared in Airplane 2, the sequel, and he did not. Pat Sajak, Art Fleming, William Shatner, Sonny Bono, and Hervé Villechaize are all in that film, but not Otto. So he qualifies for our one and done club, and he's the only inflatable one on the list. Next, we have Joanne Wade as Tree Levin's babysitter in 0 Hour, 1957. In retrospect, 0 Hour should have been mentioned in episode 1 this season, since it introduced a total of 7 people. I hadn't seen it yet, which explains its omission. I hadn't seen it. Can't include it if I didn't see it at that point, right? The only one who qualifies from this list from that movie is Joanne Wade. The only other thing I can tell you about Ms. Wade is that she also appeared in one episode of Sergeant Preston of the Yukon and one episode of Steve Canyon. All 3 were done in 2 years, and that was it. According to IMDb, she's still with us, and it's kind of scary how they keep up with things of that matter, so I'll take their word for it. Next time a celebrity dies, as soon as you hear about it, go to IMDb. They beat you to it. Next, we have Maria Zimmett as Rosalie in The Rain People, 1969. Like Joanne Wade, Maria Zimmett also has 2 television appearances to her credit. She was in 1 episode of Hawk in 1966 and 1 episode of Confidential for Women, also in 1966. With The Rain People in 1969, Ms. Zimmett made 1 movie and 2 television episodes, and yet she got to work with Francis Ford Coppola, Robert Duvall, James Caan, Burt Reynolds, and Jane Wyatt. It's not bad for a short acting career. Her 66th birthday is later this month. I doubt Duvall sends her a card. And the final member of our new club is Patrick Wolf as Cliff in Beach Red, 1967. Patrick Wolf was born Pascal Francois Tone on July 29, 1943 in Beverly Hills, California. He has been married to the same woman since 1968, and they have 2 children. His one and only credited appearance is in Beach Red, which makes him a true one and done. 0 uncredited performances or appearances, and 0 television appearances, movies, or shows. Patrick's father is Oscar-nominated actor Francois Tone, which explains his birth name. His father appeared in over 100 films and received his Oscar nomination for Best Actor in the 1936 version of Mutiny on the Bounty. He made 42 films before Patrick was born, and his son was a one and done. It probably happens more than you think. Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode of Cinema Wellman. We hope you join us again next week for our episode about gambling movies. Is that finally going to happen? Well, DraftKings has it at -155, while FanDuel has it at -120, that it's going to happen next week. So bet with your heart and not with your head. Or wait, no, it's the other way around. Bet with your head and not with your heart. Yeah. Only time will tell if that happens next week. Until next time, take care.